Hi, and welcome to Women of Worth Wednesday. We are coming to you from the Timpanogos Temple, but it is too windy outside to broadcast, so we are in my car. And surprise! No surprise, they knew you were coming. My son, Cameron Condie, just returned from his mission on Wednesday, so today's been 1 week. Almost close to exactly when he came down that escalator, which you're right, it's the best hug in the world, maybe second only to when you were born. You know. So I'm excited for my Women of Worth family all over the world to get to know my son that you've heard a lot about the last year. So make sure you post in your comments where you're watching from today and share this video with those that you think may be blessed by it. We're grateful for High Five Live and the community that has developed here over the last couple of years, and we love this opportunity to connect. We're grateful for technology because Nigeria to Arkansas gets to join in. So
no pressure.
And High Five Live team is already loving Cam. So yes, we love Cam. So just a little bit about, why don't you share with everybody where you served?
All right. Well, I started in the Zimbabwe Mission, and then that split about 1.5 years into my mission. So I finished in the Zimbabwe Mission, and that covered the southern half of the country. Yeah, and that just happened this summer. So you got a new mission president and a new mission. And what was that change like for those that are missionary families watching and maybe their missionaries going through a similar? It was interesting, you know, like, I don't know how much, am I allowed to talk about the Book of Mormon?
Yeah, this is a Latter-day Saint community, so go for it. So
the best way I can describe it is, in the Book of Mormon, you learn about how you got the two groups of people. You got the Lamanites, or Laman and Lemuel, and Nephi and Sam. And something I always found was interesting is that Nephi, it says, had to pray for a softened heart. Like, he didn't just take right away that his father was this prophet and that he was going out into the wilderness for nothing. And I can imagine Nephi struggling with it a little bit. But he prayed and prayed and prayed, and he had the faith, and he knew enough about God that it was an easy transition for him, and he took it wholeheartedly. And Laman and Lemuel, it says,
never did that.
They never did that because it says they knew not the dealings of the God who had created them. And so that's the best way I can describe it is, I personally, it wasn't much of a struggle because I had the faith that President Okot, whatever he did, was what God wanted him to do. But there were some that struggled with that. Yeah. And
I think that's a really good point, that I remember that time talking with you about that and what you were doing to kind of prepare spiritually. And I think even if you're not a missionary or a missionary family, when there's a new bishop called, when there's a new state presidency called, sometimes for people when a new prophet's called, because they know them from way back when, and so they know their personality. And so I loved that you had the experience of having two mission presidents, because not every missionary gets that. And it's they bring a different focus to the mission. And I heard one of our friends, Braxton, I think, shared, or Braden, one of the Brees, shared that he realized that a missionary is called to a mission president and not necessarily to a mission. And he had two different mission presidents as well. And so I thought that was an interesting example of, like, if you're humble and willing to be taught, your leader is a blessing. And sometimes that's because they make it hard and you have to struggle through those feelings, right?
Well, and one of the changes that was made right away was that we were supposed to leave at 10 before.
Some people are saying they can't see. Can you see now, Janice? Okay.
So one of the changes that was made was the schedule. And before we were leaving at 10, we were doing personal study and getting ready in the morning.
Right.
And we thought it was great. And then President Okot came in, and right away the change was, you leave at 9 and you do your comp study in the morning and you do personal study at night. And we all kind of flipped out at first. We didn't think it was possible. And it was really hard at first because, like, we were like, where are we going to find the time to do things in the morning where, nothing's going to work? And then we realized, like, 2 weeks in, oh my gosh, we were wasting so much time before.
Isn't that cool?
And so that was one of the changes. Like at first, some of the things seemed crazy.
Yeah.
But you make the change and then you see, okay.
Which leads us maybe to our next thought. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about one of the principles that has been on your heart that you've shared with me, kind of leads into that principle of love and obedience. And you served in leadership positions, and so you had the opportunity to be on either side of that equation a little bit and trying to help inspire missionaries. What have you learned about, which I think, you know, like with everything in life and the reasons why missions bless you for the rest of your life, is this is a principle that is for parenting, for business, for church leadership. So what do you want to share about what's been on your heart?
Well, I don't want to sound hypocritical in any way, especially if some previous missionaries are watching this.
They're like, I remember Elder Condie.
Yeah. But the principle is basically this, that in the mission you could almost divide the mission into two groups of people. There was the obedient missionaries, and then there were the loving missionaries. And there was kind of a fight going on. That's my perception of it anyway. There's kind of a fight going on between the two groups. That the obedient missionaries focused on working and focused on, well, I don't know, like working as far as getting to the area on time and planning the right way and stuff like that. And they were very, very strict.
Diligent.
Yeah. And then there were the loving missionaries that were kind of the other end of that spectrum, and they worked super hard and they had lots of baptisms, but a lot of them got sent home early and stuff like that for things that they were doing.
Because it was more about love and have fun.
And that was the thing, is they felt like loving just meant you're buddies with everyone. And you just focus on making the people laugh and being their best friends, stuff like that. But then the obedient missionaries were, it's all about obedience, it's all about the handbook. And the truth is, it's somewhere in the middle.
It's both.
It's both, yeah. You can't have one without the other.
I love that.
It's impossible. If you look at the New Testament, when Christ says that the first two great commandments are love God and love your neighbor, you have to have both. And that's encompassed in charity. You know, how charity, it's the pure love of Christ, which means it's the love that Christ has for us and for God.
So you have a shout out from Elder
Vlignot, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
See, I told you. He would walk around in Zimbabwe once in a while, and people would know him because they know me, and it's all because of Women of Worth. But okay, sorry to interrupt. So
no, it's okay. Yeah, like, I don't know. You can't, and it says this in 1 John. You can look up the scripture references later, but it's a short book. If you say you love God, but you don't do what he says, you're a liar, basically. You know, if you love me, keep my commandments. And then on the flip side, if you say I love God and you don't love other people, you know, if you love God through obedience but you don't love other people, you're also a liar.
Right.
And so the healthy balance is charity.
Yeah.
It encompasses everything. Being able to love God and love your neighbor, and respectively be obedient and be kind to the people around you.
I think that's a good example of why the ministering program has expanded, because it's saying, instead of a checklist, we want you to know through the Spirit what someone needs, which is the love. But we're still having quarterly reports because there needs to be a boundary.
Yeah.
And I think once in a while, and you and I know family members and friends like this, that they think a loving God just loves everybody.
Everybody, doesn't matter what you do.
You don't need to have commandments. And really, what God has shown us time and again is that boundaries or commandments are loving. It's not either or, it's an and. So what did you do for all the parents of teenagers out there that are trying to get obedience with love, maybe you learned this the hard way on your mission, because I remember you saying multiple times miracles do come when you're exactly obedient. And you expressed that, you know, the last few months you finally figured it out, which is so normal. Like, for moms out there, the minute your kid leaves, you're like, oh wait, come back, I think I've figured some stuff out, right? How did you motivate people to be obedient? And what maybe do you feel comfortable sharing in your own experience of where being obedient was a blessing, and maybe you had to learn it the hard way?
Yeah.
And pretend you're not talking to your mom.
Well, I would say when you're not obedient, you don't feel like a missionary. And
or a disciple,
or anything, X,
yeah.
If you don't live the rules according to the job that or the thing that you've been assigned to do, you're faking it, and you're just going to feel empty and hollow inside.
Yeah.
And
Satan's favorite, fake, hollow.
He's
like, have fun.
The counterfeit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because he tricks us into thinking we're having all the fun in the world in the moment, and then it ends and there's nothing there.
Wind beneath the shafts, or whatever that scripture is, right? I just read that in Mormon, right?
Yeah.
Where Satan's just like tossing you to and fro.
And the obedience brings that solidity inside. It brings
the anchor,
sincerity. Yeah.
So what would you say to a missionary that was struggling with obedience and still maintain love?
Well, it was hard because I went through a little bit of both ends of the spectrum.
Yourself.
Yeah. Because I was the obedient missionary at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then
when you're fresh out of the MTC and you know the list.
And you're going to go and fix the mission. You're going to fix the missionaries. You're going to fix everything, but it doesn't work. And everyone just kind of fought back, and that was my fault. And I was not well liked at first. And so I said, okay, I'm done with this. I'm going to go to the loving side.
And just be the
and just lax off a little bit, but have fun. And that didn't work either, because then I just felt like garbage inside.
Yeah, because the spirit struggles to dwell when fun is the priority.
And the balance on that, or being able to help someone else, came from having that experience and saying, no, you're not having fun. I promise you're not. Like,
it feels fun, but it's empty.
It's going to end, and you're going to go back and you're going to say, okay, well, what else can I do that can bring that joy? But you're never going to find anything.
Yeah.
Because obedience is the right way. But if you try to say that without the loving aspect of it and just beat it into someone's head, it's not going to work either.
They're going to reject it.
So it's a matter of helping them. You know, you're not compelling, but you're
inviting,
persuading. Yeah, it's like Doctrine and Covenants says. You're persuasion, love unfeigned, stuff like that.
Oh, you mean like the scriptures are the truth, and they give us hope and a focus on Christ, and that's the answer to everything. Before our time ends, because you are running into the temple, what if you had to, I know this is the worst question for return missionaries, because how do you take 2 years or 18 months, or even if you're 10 months there, and talk about that experience? What did you love about Zimbabwe and the people?
I loved how humble they were, how you could talk about God or Christ with any of them, because everyone goes to church.
They're very faith-focused people. Yeah.
It was hard sometimes because they would listen and listen and listen and then not go anywhere because they just wanted to talk about God and the Bible and all. But that was very refreshing. And then on top of that, that translates to just being able to talk to anyone. Yeah. You know, whether it be about God or anything else, you just walk up and start a conversation.
Yeah, which he's noticed already in a week. It's different back home. My invitation to him as a mom is don't lose that, because the world needs more of people that just talk and are kind and hug everyone.
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily like they're grumpy people inside.
It's a culture. Yeah, it's a different culture for sure.
But I would suggest just change that culture a little bit. Yeah. Like, it's really not.
Well, and one person can. It's the butterfly effect. So if there's one return missionary that's walking around saying hi and hugging everyone, that's enough to change everything. Yeah.
And it's not hard. Just looking up and saying hi and smiling, real smile, not the, you know.
So also for all the mothers and women out there that are grandmothers and aunts and whatever, what's your advice to pre-missionaries that are trying to maybe fight through some struggles, and they've had some blocks in getting their papers in, or they're not sure about their testimony, or they're feeling like, I don't know the scriptures well enough? What advice would you give them now on this end? Because 2 years went like a half a second, right?
Yeah. You only get it once. So don't start off on the wrong foot. Like, if I could, I wish I could have pushed my departure date back a little bit. You know, and I can't say that because I think I was supposed to go when I was supposed to go. But at the same time, preparation-wise, I wish I would have waited a little bit longer. But in the moment, you don't see that. You see, you know, I'm from Utah, and I've got parents who are expecting me to do this, and I've got the culture around me expects me to do this, so I'm just going to go out. But it's not worth it. So if you're preparing, take the time to prepare. It's about you. And if people don't understand that, it's okay.
Yeah.
But if you're struggling with worthiness, or you're struggling with, if you don't have a testimony, take the time to get one.
Yeah.
And it's worth the extra 6 months, or worth the extra year that you have to wait.
Yeah, we're not racing.
Yeah. And I got out there and I was like, oh, I'm 19. There's going to be a bunch of 18-year-olds. No, there's 23-year-olds, 24, 25.
Yeah, and some of the best missionaries
Exactly.
have had to fight through and know. And I would say, though, on the flip side of that, I think that's super great advice. So I'm not negating it. I'm saying an and. That's my favorite word. And you're never going to leave thinking you have it all.
Exactly.
I mean, part of why you develop a testimony so intensely is you can't help when 24 hours a day you're focused on Christ, talking of Christ, preaching of Christ. And we would love to keep being that way all the time. But when you have a call to do that, it does change you. And so it's easy to look back and go, okay, I wish I had studied more or done more or whatever. Some of it is you got to show up and just start. So I think I haven't met one missionary about to go in the MTC that isn't scared to death and afraid that they don't know enough. So I always say Satan is really wanting you to stay in that place too. But I love your advice of
it's a balance. Yeah.
You don't rush out just because you walked across the high school graduation stage, right? And you just go. Well, our time is up. It goes super, super fast. That's why some interviews go longer, but I know you're trying to get into the temple. I just know this community here has prayed for you, which can be up to 30 to 50,000 people. So that's a lot of prayers. And I know that for me, every missionary I met everywhere for the last 2 years, I would offer to buy them something or thank them for their service. It's tough. I mean, I don't think there's a person out there that if you have a church assignment, wants to move away to do the assignment and then live with a stranger to do it. So the fact that the church is kind of resting on the shoulders of 18 to 23-year-olds that are doing that is miraculous.
And if that's not a testimony that which is true, like,
right. What else?
God's not going to let the 19-year-olds mess up the plan of salvation.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's also not going to, put it all on us. It's mostly for our growth.
Yeah. So what's your goal before you say goodbye as you now return, which has been, we're going to be emailing or writing or communicating a little bit, because I get asked all the time, what's the secret to this phase? And I'm going through it for the first time. What is your advice already 1 week home to missionaries that are just transitioning? Because it's painful, right? It's like you lived on a planet and now you're...
Yeah. I don't know. My struggle is remembering that it's still a battle.
Yeah.
If you can read the war chapters, if you can read those things and remember it's a battle that Satan's fighting, that you wake up every morning and he's going to try everything he can to get you to stop doing the things you're supposed to be doing.
What did the stake president tell you 2 years after returning? How many percentage of missionaries don't have a current recommend? 50%. It kind of made me mad at Satan big time. I left. I was like, no! So as a mom, I'll be messaging with you later about how I'm trying to hold back and let him learn this next phase, because no 21-year-old wants their mom telling you how to do it. So I'm learning. That's why we look to Christ, right? For everything, right? Well, thanks, love. I love you so much. Right. I'm so grateful you're home. Thank you for joining us. He is a wonderful young man. I feel really blessed to be his mom, and I'm super grateful for Zimbabwe. The people of Zimbabwe have our hearts. The Condie family, we're Zimbabwe fans. And I don't know, I think every family feels this way, but it was the perfect mission for you, and it was the perfect mission for our family. And there's a spirit and a blessing of being a missionary family. So if you're going through that, especially at this time of year when you're missing your missionary, I know last Christmas was hard for me. There's nothing like the blessings that come from being a missionary family. And let's keep praying for, I would say the whole church prays for the missionaries. Let's pray for all the return missionaries too, because they're transitioning back into this world, and they're our future leaders. So thank you for joining us. Please share this today with someone that is struggling to raise their teenager, trying to help their teenager prepare for a mission, struggling because their missionary came home early, or just needs to see a cute return missionary face. I'm just saying.
And if you're struggling, just go on a mission. It fixes things.
It does! You forget yourself in work, and it's amazing what God's like, hey, if you give me this, guess what I'll give you in return? Yeah. And you can't hold all the blessings. So, yes, thank you. I love y'all, and we'll see you next week. Our own Pam will be here on Women of Worth Wednesday, the day after Christmas, so don't miss that.